They're shouting, "Oh God, oh God." Now, this is new video sent in to us. It shows a pitch battle going on very early on Thursday morning. And also from the same night, protesters keeping their spirits up despite the bitterly cold night and that barrage of rocks being thrown at them. So you can, of course, see all of these tweets and images via our live blog on the website. These are the updates for now. Adrian.
Imran, many thanks. Joining us now is Sharif Allah, political activist who's in Tahrir Square. What can you tell us of the situation there right now? We heard from our correspondents that it's much quieter, that things have calmed down a lot from a couple of hours ago.
Yes, we are millions here. We are gathering, and regarding the violence and skirmishes with the thugs who are led by the NDP, everything is quieter now. All entrances to Al-Tahrir, to the Liberation Square, are secured. Maybe a few minor injuries, but we have a central hospital here, and we have a pharmacy. Everything is made and done by the people. We are doing the security, we are doing the medical assistance. And we're here refusing anything but the removal of the regime and the departure or the stepping down of Mubarak. This is the only thing that could or should calm things down.
All right, so you're barricaded in for the night. What are your plans for tomorrow?
Our plans for tomorrow, we believe that millions of Egyptians will go down the streets tomorrow supporting the protesters and condemning the brutality that is obvious to all international actors now. The state is killing its people, and they're releasing thugs against us. And we believe that tomorrow is the day, and that Mubarak will leave tomorrow.
Did you hear the Vice President speaking on Egyptian television earlier and what he had to say? From what he had to say, the President isn't going anywhere.
Yeah, we heard that he wants nothing but the fact that the protesters should go home, and that this is very disappointing. That's one thing. And on the other hand, it made it even more stable on our stance, because he was actually sending an explicit message warning the protesters. He said that this is unacceptable. You're here, we have the power, you don't have the power, so you do not warn us. We are here, and we will still be here until the change of the regime.
All right, many thanks indeed. Sharif Allah, a political activist in Tahrir Square. Well, as the security situation in Cairo deteriorates, charter evacuation flights are landing from around the world. Between 10,000 and 13,000 passengers fled Cairo on Wednesday alone aboard around 95 flights. Hundreds of nationals have touched down in the South Korean capital Seoul. There are similar scenes as Australians landed, not back home in Australia, but in the German city of Frankfurt. Well, let's speak to Dr. Omar Ashur once again, who's a lecturer in politics at the Institute of Arab and Islamic Studies at the University of Exeter. How quickly do you think economically can Egypt recover from this, assuming that that something happens, it comes to some sort of crux in the next few days?
I think economically the condition that Egypt is in now is unsustainable, basically, and this is creating more pressure on the military to make the decisive move probably against Mubarak, saying that now that we don't have, there's a shortage of food, there's shortage of bread, shortage of gas, ATM machines are not working, banks are closed, businesses are undermined, and therefore the situation cannot be sustained like that for a while. But the recovery will be quick, assuming that things get back to normal, and by normal I mean the transition actually occurs. And Egypt then you will find no more protests, because this will have ripple effects. Even if the things continue and the Mubarak or some of the Mubarak regime figures stayed in power, like Omar Suleiman, this will not satisfy the protesters, and there will be a continuation of demonstrations. So
sorry
the best way for economic recovery is democratic
we're going to have to
transition.
leave it there. Many thanks indeed. I'm going to leave you now. My colleague Folibar Thibault will be here in just a few moments to take you through the next few hours with our continuous coverage here of events in Egypt. I'll leave you with a look at some of the images that we've seen out of Tahrir, or Liberation Square, from the past 24 hours. Stay with us.
As the fog hangs warily over London, we can always offer you the perfect pick-me-up.
Hello there. Well, let's start off with a look at the states where we've seen our huge winter storm. Here's a satellite picture over the last 36 hours. You can see this distinctive swirl here, gradually pulling away towards the northeast, but still trailing that final leg across the southeast corner. Here's where we're going to see yet more heavy downpours as we head through the next couple of days. Very heavy downpours and lots more snow as well. To the north, well, here it should be a good deal drier and brighter for many of us as well, but it certainly won't be warm. Chicago there at best getting to -6 degrees. Now, a little bit further south, you can see that trailing leg is also affecting us in the eastern parts of Mexico as well. And to the south of that, there'll just be a few showers there thrown onto the coast. I think for us in Cuba, though, here it should be dry and fine, as it will be across Haiti as well. Over towards Europe and here in the north, things are beginning to change. They're far more unsettled now and also far more windy as we head through Friday. It really will be a very blustery day there for the UK. We've also got more wet weather just sinking its way southwards there, not only for the UK this, but also making its way through Scandinavia. And here there'll be lots of snow mixed in with that as well. Further south, things here are calming down. It should be a relatively nice day there in Rome, up at 13 degrees.
Qatar Airways, world's 5-star airline.
All the news, all the time. aljazeera.net/English.
The European Tour returns to Doha Golf Club for the 2011 Commercial Bank Qatar Masters with world #1 Lee Westwood. 12 men have walked away with the stunning trophy, as well as the lion's share of the $2.5 million prize money. But whose name will be on the Mother of Pearl trophy in 2011? The Commercial Bank Qatar Masters, February 3rd through 6th, 2011.
On the next Riz Khan show, we discuss the protests in Egypt and elsewhere in the Arab world. Between ideology and democracy, what does the future hold? Riz Khan, at this time on Al Jazeera.
For Egypt continues. A curfew is in place, but it's still being ignored. Hello, I'm Folibar Thibault. You're watching Al Jazeera. It's 1900 hours GMT, 9 p.m. in Cairo, where pro-democracy supporters are preparing to spend another night outside. We've seen 10 days of demonstrations now, which turned violent in the last 48 hours. Those for and against the president have been clashing in Tahrir or Liberation Square. And your protests, your demands have been met. The vice president making a plea on state TV this Thursday. Meanwhile, the United Nations evacuates staff and their families from Egypt for security reasons. Key members are staying in the region. All Our extended coverage of events continue here on Al Jazeera. Events in Egypt, of course. Clashes continue in Cairo with pro-democracy supporters fighting those who back the president in the battle for Egypt. At least 13 people have been killed in this violence and more than 1,200 injured. Gangs have also been attacking reporters and foreigners, making conditions extremely difficult for those on the ground. Now, 3 Al Jazeera journalists have been arrested doing their job. A 4th is missing. Speaking on state television, the country's newly appointed Vice President Omar Suleiman reiterated neither Hosni Mubarak or anyone in his family will stand during the next election. He appealed to protesters, asking them to stop demonstrating, claiming all their demands had been met.
President Mubarak, when he found out that the demands voiced by the 25th of January youth, lawful and acceptable, he discussed and examined how these demands and the needs of the homeland can be met. President Mubarak laid down a plan as a roadmap plan in order to have these demands materialized. It was announced in his last address to the people, and it was clear that he has responded to all the lawful demands. We could have also accepted further demands. We could have also responded to further political reforms. However, the time span, the time limit is thin and tight. The presidential elections will be carried out in August or September. It will not go beyond this time limit. And from now till that moment, we have less than 200 days, during which certain amendments should be carried out, which amendments require a great deal of time, both constitutional and legislative.
Well, let's take you now live to Washington, D.C., where the State Department spokesman P.J. Crowley is addressing reporters on the situation in Egypt. Let's listen in.
Broken into, journalists detained. These do not seem to be random events.
And then my last question was just on the, did Wisner brief the secretary this morning? Can you tell us anything about that?
All I can tell you is Ambassador Wisner returned to Washington, I believe, early this morning, and he briefed the secretary here at the State Department early this morning.
Jordan?
No.
PJ, on Jordan.
I think it was about half an hour.
On Jordan.
On the call to King Abdullah, did the secretary ask King Abdullah to speak to Hosni Mubarak and explain to him that it was time to go?
I'll leave the specifics of their conversation private.
PJ, on this topic.
They did talk about Egypt, but beyond that.
On the journalists.
Let's kill off Jordan.
Can,
and then we go to Egypt.
It's a bit strong. One thing on the journalists. There are indications that some of them at least have been held by the Ministry of Interior.
We have heard that. You know, I mean, obviously, we've been talking to all of you, and we've been conveying, the information that you have, to the embassy. We are tracking these. In fact, Mark Toner is monitoring. We have a spreadsheet where we're monitoring, case by case, all the reports that are coming in. The embassy has been terrific in having its security officers use their contacts within the Egyptian government and others to just try to determine the status of all the journalists who have been either roughed up or detained.
But is there a pattern here? In other words, if you have several cases where they are being held by the MOI, is there a pattern? Do you think that they are?
Well, Jill, I just said that I don't think that these are random events. There appears to be an effort to disrupt the ability of journalists to cover today's events. It could well be, this is in anticipation of events tomorrow, which we are bracing for a significant increase in the number of demonstrators on the streets, and with that, given yesterday's events, the real prospect of a confrontation.
On Jordan, you said that Jordan's efforts were too slow. Was that?
No, I was repeating a quote from King Abdullah himself. I saw that he was quoted today in a dispatch saying that he said that reform efforts were slow.
Thanks for clarifying that. But is something like direct election of the Prime Minister in Jordan something that the Secretary of State discussed with the King of Jordan?